Today, we're diving into the world of those tall, glassy giants that dominate our city skylines. Yes, I'm talking about skyscrapers, the towering metal monsters that make you feel like a tiny ant as you stare up at them. But have you ever thought about how they got this way? I mean, they weren't always shiny, curvy, Instagrammable wonders. Skyscrapers have evolved dramatically, and today, we're going on a journey through time to see just how they went from plain boxes to breathtaking works of art. And trust me, it's going to be more fun than it sounds, a lot more fun. We're going to talk about designs, technology, a little drama, and maybe even some accidents involving glass doors. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and get ready to watch the evolution of skyscrapers, from function to pure art. Back in the late 1800s, cities were booming and space was limited. People started asking, why are we spreading out when we could just go up? And voila, the skyscraper was born. These early skyscrapers were the pioneers, the rugged, no-nonsense types. They weren't here to win any beauty contests. They were here to work. Imagine the first skyscrapers as that one grumpy relative who doesn't care what anyone thinks. Boxy, functional, no frills. But hey, they were effective. With steel frames holding them up, these buildings could rise much higher than the traditional brick buildings before them. Then we hit the 1930s, and here's where things started getting interesting. Ever heard of the Empire State Building? Of course you have. Built in 1931, it was the tallest building in the world for over 40 years, the skyscraper equivalent of an undefeated world champ. At 1,454 feet tall, the Empire State wasn't about fancy curves or shiny glass. It was about sheer height. This thing was practical and intimidating, like the tough kid on the block. You didn't mess with it. And for New Yorkers, it was the pride of the city. Tall, proud, and a little rough around the edges. Sounds like New York itself, right? But the 1950s and 60s came along, and the architectural world had a bit of an identity crisis. Suddenly, it wasn't enough to be the tallest. Skyscrapers needed to look good too. Enter glass and curves. Yes, that shiny reflective material that would soon cover nearly every high-rise. Architects figured out that they could make these buildings sleek and smooth, and before you knew it, cities were filled with skyscrapers that looked like they were designed by James Bond villains. In this period, skyscrapers went from grumpy dads to city slickers in fancy suits. They had fewer sharp corners and way more style, enough to make anyone passing by stop and stare. These were buildings you could actually call beautiful, almost like they'd gone through a makeover montage in a movie. Goodbye boxy, hello classy. And just when we thought skyscrapers couldn't get any cooler, we entered the 21st century, where things got, well, extra. Just look at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. At 2,717 feet, it's so tall it makes everything else look like, well, kids' toys. This isn't just a building, it's a statement. The Burj doesn't just break records, it annihilates them. Standing in the middle of the desert, it's like this glowing beacon of ambition. With its sleek design and futuristic lighting, the Burj Khalifa feels like a glimpse of a city from the year 3020. And it's not just Dubai. All over the world, cities are embracing the skyscraper glow-up. New buildings are rising with more curves, more glass, and way more attitude. Today's skyscrapers are part building, part art installation, and part selfie background for tourists. Why all the design changes? Because let's face it, skyscrapers aren't just functional anymore. They're experiences. You don't just see them, you feel them. Walking up to a modern skyscraper is like stepping into a high-end hotel. It's all about the ambiance, the style, the vibe. They're like fancy restaurants in a way. Sure, you go for the food or the office space, but you also want that wow factor. And architects today? They're basically the rock stars of the urban world. They're not just putting up walls and windows, they're creating statements. Every city wants its own unique look, something to make people stop and think, wow, I need a photo of that. It's no longer enough to just be tall. Now, you've got to be tall, stylish, and unforgettable. But you know what? Even with all this focus on style, skyscrapers are still essential. They're the backbone of cities, where people live, work, and even relax. They may look different, but they're still the buzzing heart of urban life. And that's what's so interesting about skyscrapers. They've changed in appearance, sure, but their purpose, that's stayed the same. They're the places where city life thrives, and no matter how they look, they're still doing the job they were built for. So, what do people actually think about all this? Are skyscrapers just pretty faces, or do they have something more? Well, let's be real. People love skyscrapers. When we see them, they make us feel like we're part of something bigger. Walking through a city full of skyscrapers feels like stepping onto a movie set. You feel tiny and powerful at the same time. These towering buildings remind us of human ambition, creativity, and that little part of us that just wants to go, yep, I live here, on the 100th floor. And secretly, let's admit it, we all want a penthouse view. I mean, who wouldn't want to wake up to a skyline view every morning, sipping coffee and pretending they have their life together? That's the dream. So, what's the final verdict on skyscrapers? They've come a long way. From boxy towers of pure function to jaw dropping symbols of art, innovation, and maybe a touch of, look what we can do. They're a bit high maintenance, sure. Have you ever tried cleaning a skyscraper? But they're worth every bit of the admiration they get. From practical workhorses to architectural masterpieces, skyscrapers are proof that we're always reaching for something bigger, better, and let's be honest, a little cooler. So next time you're in a city and you look up, don't just think about the view. Think about the journey. From steel boxes to glassy giants, skyscrapers tell the story of ambition and evolution. They're more than just buildings. They're monuments to our wildest dreams. Thanks for joining me on this skyscraper safari. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What's your favorite skyscraper? Or, share a story of the time you walked into a glass door. We've all been there.